If you haven't been outside already this morning, we're getting a nice little cool down today. Lance Robertson of plants.org is here to talk about some staple plants we're going to see in the winter months in Central Texas. Winter, a questionable term. It was 80 or whatever yesterday, but
sure, but the leaves are falling
Cooler.
off the trees.
That's right.
There's the grass is a little yellow. We're not quite as green as we would be in fall and spring, so we'll call it winter.
I appreciate you giving us like an official moniker. Evergreens, of course, are the thing that comes up when we start talking about winter.
Yeah, evergreens, because you want something to be green when all the grass is dead and the leaves are gone. So that's what we have. And a lot of people think of like conifer trees, pines, and stuff like our junipers, and those are great. But there really are a lot of plants in Central Texas that stay green all year long.
Well, and speaking of junipers, you brought a couple different, so on either side of the table here, we've got juniper, and then also you've got like this trailing juniper that I've never seen before.
Yeah, so I always tell people, look to nature at what we should grow here. And everyone is familiar with our ash junipers. It's what gives us the cedar fever, the ash fever in the winter. These are the ones that we like because they don't give off as much pollen, and we've also bred them to look a lot better. I really love these trailing varieties. This is called green rug juniper. I love them in pots because they last all year. It's something green. When your annuals are gone, it's got a little bit of interest, but it also trails over the pot to give you a little bit of color and kind of contrast you can make.
And doesn't make your allergies worse. We'll take that. Okay, so you said that people might fight you today on trees v. shrubs. We're going to use the term shrubs moving forward.
Sure.
Shrubs that stay green all year long.
Sure. This is another one I really love. This is actually bottle brush.
This, I was like, we've got to talk about what this is because it looks fake. It looks like a made-up cartoon plant. It's
does.
awesome.
I mean, everyone's seen the old bottle brush. That's really what these are. You just see like the stamens and the flowers coming amongst the leaves. It's actually native to the desert areas in Australia. So
Cool.
it does really well here. This is one of the ones that I will say though, snowpocalypse years, you're going to have some problems. So it's a little bit more on the tender side because it's not from around here. It doesn't get that we're going to be 110 and we also may be 10. So this one may struggle a little bit, but there are a lot that even if it dies back in the winter, it's going to almost immediately start growing again. So
Okay.
it's a lot of, the evergreens are really great about trying to stay green. They want to grow.
This is the next question I have for you is like when we do inevitably get the next snowpocalypse, not if, but when. And how do we tell that something's officially dead? Like it is not going to come back. Is it a waiting game?
A lot of it is a waiting game. There were plants we saw after the last snowpocalypse that took 2 years to really come back.
Okay. I know my brother was looking at his palm trees, crossing his fingers like, please, please come back.
Sure, if you want to get real technical about it, you can scratch the bark, you can pull and look for green, and it is alive, but alive doesn't mean you still want it in front of your house and your landscape. So I see people that still have palms that they saved that had problems in snowpocalypse. They look like the Charlie Brown palm. They'll survive, but they may not be one you want to keep. So
Gotcha.
I always suggest to look at the plant as kind of a whole, not just is it alive, but do you want to keep it in the condition that it's
Is
in?
it pretty? Okay, yes. Other trees or shrubs that are native to the area. You picked this one with beautiful yellow blooms.
I love Mahonia. So our native Mahonia we call Agarita. This is a different kind of Mahonia. It's a little bit taller. It's got the same yellow flowers. The other thing I love
gorgeous.
is it's got beautiful blueberries that it comes on after these yellow.
Oh.
And it makes the deer vomit if they try to eat them. So especially if you're one of those areas that the deer eat everything, they'll learn a good lesson eating some Mahonia berries. But of course, if you have kids, not the best thing because it'll make us vomit too. So they are beautiful. They're great. They're shade lovers. So if you've got a hard place, but they are something that, again, user beware. The berries are not good to eat.
With the majority of these plants that I'm looking at, are we saying keep them outside?
Oh,
largely?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Even the callistemon, even the bottle brush, I would keep it outside again once every however many years we have a snowpocalypse, mulch the bottom, maybe put a bucket on top of it to keep it from the wind blowing. Otherwise, they're really going to survive.
Okay, all right. That makes it easy for me. Who does not have a green thumb? Okay, and the camera can see this lovely plant here in the middle. When I was asking you about holly and other base shrubs, this was your pick.
Yes, Pittosporum is one of my favorite. This is variegated Pittosporum, so if you like greenery but don't want just the absolute most boring green shrubs, these are really great. We call these mock orange because they have a great smelling flower on them. They don't have any...
I know, I'm like
they're not gonna
sniffing
get
immediately.
fruit. The
Okay.
flowers, when they come out, though, they're very similar to orange, and they're prolific bloomers in the early spring, so they're great. The reason why I really tell people that these are base shrubs, you need to have something green in your landscape. These are something, they're very long-lived, they're great. It's too many times we see somebody gets hollies and they move into their house, 20 years later and their hollies are really suffering. Pittosporum are great because they really can live 100 years.
Whoa.
So they're ones that you can kind of set and forget and not have to worry about another round of plants.
Now you're talking my style. Okay, when we think about how much water some of these so quoted, winter plants need, do we need to be doing extra or less?
Very little water in the winter, and that's
Very
really
little.
across the board. Really, Central Texas, our winter is more described by we should be more cloudy and we should have a little bit more rain. Should is the key word. If we go 90 days without there being any water, we certainly need to give these water, but really in the winter time, very little water.
What would be an indicator on some of these that, maybe it's time?
Really, they're going to start losing leaves if it's been time. But as I said, the junipers, the mahonias, these that are from the desert, they're going to need very little water unless you know or have heard we've gone 100 days without rain.
Okay.
Once they're established, most of these aren't going to need rain. It's harder to see on some of the evergreens, especially during the wintertime, them fold leaves or have problems. But again, very little water is needed for most of these in the winter. So.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you a personal question I've asked you off camera, but I know that there are people who really love these trees here in Central Texas, cypress trees, specifically Italian cypress. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's like basically that column-looking tree makes a house look really beautiful,
Sure.
but can be a little bit tricky to care for.
It can, because they're long-lived and because they're these evergreens that have these solid, kind of like the Blue Point junipers, it's really common for them to get something like spider mites or have a problem, and it causes a hole in the tree that may never fill back in. So that's really the biggest complaint. My suggestion, if you really want to do Italian cypress and some of the other, I'll call them more exotic, although they're not exotic because we see them in every nursery, but using a regular pesticide program, even if it's releasing bugs and you want to be organic, doing something to keep the spider mites down. That way, if you do have damage, it's just 1 or 2 leaves instead of big pockets of it. But it is horticulture, so individual plants need individual attention. So
Always a discussion with a scientist here, I tell you what. Lance, we appreciate your time and your tips today. Thank you so much. If you need help with a specific plant, y'all, like the Italian cypress or something else that you've been questioning, you can actually reach out to Lance directly. He's so kind. Check out his website to learn more, plants.org, and increase your greenery knowledge by listening to his podcast, Good at Plants, Bad at Life.